And welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. Back and ready to go, and spring football is in the air right around the corner, but the spring visits already started, and boy, when we tell you, a parade. I mean, it's not a parade. It's like a march. It's like a march of visitors. Not the month of March, but like a literal march of visitors making their way through Ann Arbor. That is what is about to ensue when it comes to the litany of visitors, of top flight visitors that are about to make their way through the city of Ann Arbor, through the halls of Schembechler, visiting the Michigan football program. Joining me to talk about that today, to break things down from the Michigan Insider, my esteemed colleague, young Bryce Marich. Bryce, how are you?
Solid. The weather's getting nicer. It's just nicer out. I feel better just seeing it. You know, I know Ira golfs, so I'm excited to talk to Ira about eventually getting out there and golfing again. So yeah, I'm excited. And like you said, we have visitor after visitor after visitor coming up this spring.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that having this number of visitors do, what it does, one of the things it does is it helps you filter who's real, right? This is why, especially sort of the outer region guys, we talk about having them on for unofficials before you have them on for officials. You want to have them on campus as many times as you can to figure out who's real. You can't just have them on campus for an official. They could just be using you for a trip, right? So this helps you weed them out. And this helps us filter it out too. So you see who comes in on an official, and then it helps us figure out who do we want to go see? Who do we want to get out on the road to see once they make it through Schembechler and then make their way by the TMI studio to check us out, because we're going to have a lot of guys making their way by the TMI studios in the coming weeks and months as well, as you know we like to do. So that's going to be, we're going to have you guys be privy to that, as we always do, as guys make it through for their sort of TMI treatment. That's going to be a lot of fun. And Brice, it's going to be a lot of work because the Wolverines, this coaching staff, when you look at the visit list, man, they've been putting in work. And Brice, I don't even pretend. I mean, as much work as you've been putting in on this visit list, you're still adding to it.
I just added 5 minutes ago another top 100 player. And that's the thing, Sam. You talk about star-studded. They're having the who's who of, I mean, I think it's literally the top 247 coming to Ann Arbor this spring. It's insane. I really don't think these coaches are going to be able to leave Schembechler Hall. I think they might have to spend the night every night. It's just, again, the crazy thing is people are saying, how are they making this happen? Right. I think for me, the main factor of how they're getting all these guys up to campus is just simply Sharon has more stability in the program. If you look at last spring and all the coaching turnover and just trying to get all his hires in order, right? And just trying to get his program the way he wants it. It was just a lot of, changing and differences. And I think now that he's got stability, he's got his, foundation of how he wants the program to be ran. Now he can put more of his eggs in the recruiting basket. He's beefed up that recruiting department. And now you're starting to see that pay off in terms of getting these guys up to campus, which is obviously step one.
No doubt. And having that staff set allows you to get out and contact guys and start, letting the rubber hit the road and actually make some things happen, which he wasn't able to do last year. He was busy hiring coaches while other coaches were making those contacts and getting those invites out. Couldn't do that. Not only did you not have the track record, you didn't even actually have the coaches on campus to make the invites. So, and then once you had the coaches hired, they actually had to get cleared to be officially hired. So it was a whole lot. Now, not only do you have them hired, you actually won some games. So you have a little bit of a resume, and you have the NIL to back you up now too. So you have some cachet on top of it. Resume and cachet. I didn't even mean to do that. It just the one place though, as we do our position by position breakdown, the one place where it seems like it's just going to be a little more difficult, or it not seems like it is a little more difficult, because they show up in there. We're Michigan. We got the prestige, and we got the NIL to back us up, and guys are like, okay, I'm game. I'm down. We got the coaches and the gift of gab, and it's working. You know, you could get a Brice, you can get you can get all the top guys, and it's working every position: quarterback, offensive line, defensive back, all the positions, Brice, except wideout. One exception, Andrew Marsh. Andrew Marsh is why I keep talking about Ron Bellamy did a hell of a job getting Andrew Marsh, a top 100 player, in the fold. That was a huge commitment. You don't understand how huge that was when he got Andrew Marsh out, a top quarterback committed, without a huge season in the fold. None of that was had been done yet, and he got him committed. So that was big time. But Brice, this is a tough road to hoe. Say I want to come, and yet Michigan is out there right now swinging for the fences, because once you go out and you get a Brice, you get a number one quarterback in the country. You go out, you beat in Ohio State, you beat in Alabama. Sharon Moore is out there saying, I'm here, and we're going to be even better. You go hire Chip Lindsey, who has an offensive resume, who said, I could get some things done. The offense is going to be moving forward. We're going to be throwing this rock. We're going to get some things done. We're going to get some 1,000-yard receivers out here. You need to only come and just believe. Now we're going to go out there. We're going to go out and try to convince some top flight receivers to come join the fold. So they're recruiting the top receivers in the country. And while they haven't gotten him committed yet, they're at least getting them to say they're going to come take a look. That at least is happening.
They're definitely swinging for the fences. When we kind of broke down this wide receiver position and kind of their targets, essentially, I jokingly said to you, I said, there's for sure an NIL board, and then there's the recruiting board, right? Like, you can obviously see the difference of who's the shoot for the moon prospects and who's the, okay, I think I could really see this happening. So I'm not saying the NIL board can't happen, because you saw a couple of those prospects happen last cycle. But this is another animal, especially, like you said, Sam, the position. And so I think they've had to resort to, I don't want to say lower tier players, but guys maybe more unproven, right? Maybe not as lofty of offer sheet, not the highest of ranked prospects like a Jacob Washington, a Jameer Browder. Two guys that I think personally are going to be very good prospects and good players, maybe in a couple years, but they haven't really landed that instant playmaker, insert in the lineup right now, day one automatic starter. They haven't had that type of prospect step foot on campus since probably like a Nico Collins, a Donovan, Peoples-Jones type of level prospect. So it's been a while, and that's the thing too. As much as we want to talk about it, they're basically selling hope, right? And they're selling a vision. But here's the other thing, that is recruiting, right? Because some of these teams that do the air raid, guess what? They have to sell the running back position. Same thing, right? So I think everything definitely changes, though. Like you said, you got Brice in the fold. You have your future quarterback for several years to come. You got your OC, who's proven that he's not going to sit on, just going to hand off, first down, second down, third down. I guess now we have to pass. He's a guy that's proven he's going to throw the ball around the yard And it's not even just bubble screens here, bubble screen there, swing pass there, a little slant over here. They're going to try to extend the field. They're going to try to push the ball down vertically. I think that's something that, as a wideout, right, that's what you want to do. You don't want to just catch a quick little 2-yard pass and then try to do something. You want to catch the ball in open space and make a play. And these are guys that we're going to mention coming up. Certainly Sam can do that.
Yeah, man. You said it well. They are selling hope, but you got a guy in Chip Lindsey who's done it. And you got a big time quarterback who hasn't won the job yet, but you at least have the promise that is not hard to believe that he could do it, and they'll be able to come in the spring and actually see some of the spring vision on the field. So you got some pieces that can help you sell the vision, right? And for those guys who have a kind of that early timeline of, hey, I'm going to commit before the season starts, right? Those are going to be some of the harder ones to convince. The guys who go into the season will actually have some game criteria to consider as well. And even the guys who commit in the summer could still use that game criteria to kind of change their minds. And you always have that to consider. But the guys who are going to decide before the season, you're all right. Brice, you nailed it. You're selling hope. You're selling a dream. And so that's where the relationship part of it really plays into the equation, and the recruiting part of it, like the real hardcore, who's got the game, who can do the job of convincing, because we know Michigan has that cachet. We know Michigan has the NIL. Like, they can match these other schools in that. So now, can you just flat out recruit another school if all other things being equal? And they got the receiver development in the league resume over you. Can you just flat out recruit them? It boils down to that. And that's why I say, Brice, and tell me if you can go with me on this. The best shot that they have, we're going to talk about a number of receivers here in the next half hour or 40 minutes or so. The best shot that they have on the list is the homegrown guy. Detroit Cass Tech athlete, the number 82 player in the country, the number 8 player overall. We just saw him at the Sound Mind, Sound Body Media Day. Cj Sadler. He's the guy, the utility player. He's a wide out. He's a slot. He's a DB too. But you line him up everywhere and you just get him. He's the get him the ball guy. Cj Sadler is the best shot that they have of pulling in that top 100, top 10 wide out on the list, Brice, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I think one of that is distance factor. Obviously, he's close to home. He plays at a very favorable school in terms of Michigan at Cass Tech, which Michigan has had plenty of success landing guys from that program over the years. And I think too, he's very familiar with the program, right? So he's been up to campus several times. He knows several guys on the roster, especially from Sound Mind, Sound Body program, like a Will Johnson, Jacob Oden, Samaj Morgan, right? Bryce Underwood, he's definitely familiar with. And I know, Sam, you talked to him personally one-on-one with that video interview you did with him. And he kind of mentioned it. There is the Brice factor. Just his presence alone on campus and in the program makes a big difference.
Hey, Brice recruiting you at all?
My guy owe me hard, man. Hey, he owe me hard. He
a quarterback. He got to recruit his guys, right?
Gotta be, man. I respect that. But he owe me hard, And it's so crazy, man, just seeing Brice doing what he do now, bro, because me and him been playing against each other for so long. You feel me? Since we was 7, 8 years old, we always meet up in the championship or playoffs or regular season, man. And, it'd be great matchups. Man. But, hey, they say what? Hey, two come together, man. I don't know. We gonna have to see though. We gonna have to see. We gonna have to see.
Right now, if I had to pinpoint my guy, the favorite from Michigan on the wide receiver board, if I had to pick one that Michigan could land today out of all of them we're gonna name, it would be CJ. And that here's the thing too about CJ. He is a type of guy that you just got to find the way to get him the ball. Mm-hmm. And he would say himself, I'm a playmaker. He's like, I label me more so as an athlete. And he's made it very clear, even to you again, I am a two-way player. Wherever I'm going, I am not just a wideout. I will be playing both sides. And if that's the case, Michigan should have the easiest selling pitch ever with Jabril Peppers and show him clips of him playing defense, offense, right? That's an example I would use personally. Obviously, I think he's going to be more offensive kind of minded. I think they're going to use him more on offense than defense. But I think that's one way you can approach that recruiting, standpoint. There's a lot going in Michigan's favor, but at the same time, he is kind of eyes wide open. He does want to check out other schools. He does want to see the different corners of, the country. I know he's been to Oregon. He really enjoyed that experience out there. USC, the glitz and glamour of LA. I think that's always appealing to someone who's never been out to Cali, especially the LA area. The Southern schools, I think, making stops down there. That's a different type of culture and a different type of environment that maybe some people haven't ever experienced. So Michigan's going to have their hands full at the end of the day with CJ, but there's still a lot going in their favor. And again, if I had to peg them to land anyone that we're going to name, it would probably be CJ at the moment.
Yeah, he was adamant about, I'm going to play both ways. That is a sort of a mandatory consideration for any school that thinks they have a shot at landing him. He has not minced words that you got to give me opportunity to play some defense. So I think that is going to be one of the major initiatives as you get into the home stretch of his recruitment for Michigan. He is going to make a summer decision. He said, I'm going to get my decision out of the way before my senior campaign. So, here in the next 3-4 months, 5 months, maybe, that's I think the one of the hurdles for Michigan is to forward that more, to get him more with Lamar Morgan, to, kind of familiarize him with the defensive coaching staff, and then to sell him on, hey, we're going to throw the ball more, because make no mistake, Michigan, from a receiver development standpoint, they aren't going to be able to tout the statistical success at receiver that some of their most of their contemporaries tout. They aren't going to be able to tout the number of receivers in the league, high round draft picks that the contemporaries are able to tout. So, those are hurdles that I don't think that are insurmountable, though, because they have the relationships. He said, man, I was with Ron Bellamy when Ron Bellamy was at West Bloomfield. He was trying to get me to come to West Bloomfield. I've been knowing him that long. Like, that's my guy. He's a Sharon Moore. That's my guy. And then my guys that are on the roster, your Samaj Morgans, your Jacob Odens, the Sound Mind, Sound Body guys. He's Elijah Dot. He said they got E-Dot over there now. And then, of course, the man, the guy who would be throwing them the ball, the number one quarterback in the country, the lure for all the quarterbacks, obviously number 19, Bryce Underwood, who he watched decide to stay home. And he said, man, that resonated with me. That meant a lot. I'm talking to you now, Brice. That meant a lot watching him decide to stay home. He chose to do that. And he said, listen, I'm thinking about that too. to build your brand, you can build it anywhere, but man, to build it at home, how could you not think? I'm definitely thinking about that. I'm not going to even lie to you. I'm definitely thinking about that. So, Michigan has some feathers in its cap. And he said, Brice is really recruiting me hard. He said, I respect that. He said, I really respect that. How could he not? He's got to do that. He's got to recruit me hard. So, feathers in the cap, I think he's their best shot. And he is a dynamic player, a dynamic personality. And I think he's Michigan's best shot at getting a big-time guy. Now, but they're swinging for the fences, Brice. Now, if Steve Lorenz were here, and I mentioned this next name, he'd be like, okay. Okay. This is definitely one of those swing for the fences guys. Then your best Steve Lorenz impression, when I say this name, Brice, give me your reaction, but Tristen Keys.
You know what I think of? I always think about, because where's he from, Sam? That would be my follow-up question to Steve's reaction. You say
Mississippi. Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
And Steve always, this is like his favorite factoid of recruiting, I feel like sometimes, when he's like, when was the last player Michigan's gotten from the state of Mississippi? Which was Jeremy Nasir. It's been a while. Let's just, it's like, yeah. I mean, hey, if you're going to go and land the number one quarterback in the country, you might as well try to team him up with the number one wideout in the country, right? That just makes sense. You're going to have the best with the best. And as a wideout, why wouldn't you want to play with the best quarterback in the country?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an easy selling point, right? I know we talked about you got to sell hope and kind of like what the offense could look like, but you don't have to sell much because the dude's already here, right? I mean, I guess you got to call in the place and actually see it on Saturdays, but, compared to last season, it's tough to sell because he didn't have a ton going on at the quarterback position. Now, you do have that future star. And I just think with a guy like his caliber, we're talking about the 5-star. He's got 35 offers from coast to coast, 6'3", 180 pounds. I mean, he can do it all. He's a multi-sport athlete, competes in track and field, plays basketball. I mean, there's nothing he can't really do. And that's why when you're looking at a type of kid like Tristen Keys, NIL is going to play a big factor. No questions about that. But the first step to really becoming a player in a recruitment like this is getting that kid up to campus with his family and with his people in his circle. And Michigan's doing that. He's going to be coming up April 5th. I'm pretty sure that's his first ever trip to Ann Arbor. So the goal with that would be trying to secure that return trip and see where things go from there. I mean, you can't expect a commitment right away. You can't expect too much. But if you can secure that return trip with a guy like this, that's all you can ask for. And honestly, if I'm Michigan and when he comes up April 5th, I don't even know if I'm going to have him with the coaches. I might just have Bryce Underwood be his tour guide and show him around and talk to him. And that's that. Sometimes the best recruiters are the guys on your roster. It's not even the coaches. Sometimes it's the actual players themselves. And with Brice, I think what's really interesting is when we went to that Sound Mind, Sound Body media day event, Sam, one of the things, and I talked to a lot of guys, and I know you did too, but one of the things that stood out the most to me was the amount of interest that guys said they're interested because of Brice, right? It's, when I asked them the question, okay, what stands out about Michigan? Bryce Underwood. All right, what else? Well, Michigan's got Bryce Underwood. And I get it. He's the local guy. There are local prospects as well, so they're very familiar with Brice. but that's fresh on the mind. It's been put out there to the media several times. He's been around the country doing interviews with Rich Eisen. I mean, he's got a huge profile, a huge brand, and Michigan should capitalize and use that, right, on the recruiting trail. This is the type of prospect that you put in front of him, right? Tristen Keys is not your average wideout. This is a guy that, again, when we talk about plug and play guys, he could probably play for Michigan starting the season if it started this year. I mean, he's that type of top tier talent. So, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you shoot for the fences, right? I think that's going to be an uphill battle for sure. But you got Bryce Underwood in your corner. And the other thing, too, I think people shouldn't sleep at this. And you mentioned this, Sam, the relationship piece of it. And Ron Bellamy, as much as, he's got a kind of uphill battle of kind of selling that position and kind of trying to lure guys to Ann Arbor, he was, I will say, ranked as the number 3 overall recruiter in the country by 24/7 Sports last cycle. So he knows how to recruit. And that's another thing that Michigan has going for at the wide receiver position. But yeah, it will be really interesting to see kind of his reaction, how things play out after this first trip to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and so you talk about swinging for the fences. A name that they haven't heard, Michigan fans probably haven't heard as much. Michigan also taking a shot at the number 3 receiver in the country. You were even more surprised by this one, Brice, than you were Tristen Keys, who was the number 1 receiver, but the number 3 receiver in the country out of Miami Northwestern High School, 6'5", 195 pounds, the number 18 player overall, Calvin Russell. A guy who is the son of a former University of Miami women's college basketball player.
So when you initially mentioned his name to me, I was having flashbacks of former recruiting battles down the state of Florida that Michigan has gone and then lost, like a Raylan Wilson, and a Chris Ewald, and even a guy, and I'm not saying he's decommitted, but it's a lot more work now. Brody Jennings, try to keep him in the fold of just how many programs have now courted him. And I think it's a different beast when you're recruiting guys, especially in South Florida, right? They seem to be very eager to play the recruiting game, so to speak, and have fun and go through the process more so than sometimes other prospects in certain areas. And so, yeah, you talk about uphill battle. This is one where, as far as I know, they don't have a visit lined up. He doesn't have a visit lined up to Michigan quite yet. I know Michigan is for sure working on trying to get him up this spring or summer. We're going to see if that happens. But yeah, that one is just, for me, it's like, I got to see it to believe it. Like, as much as, it's just, that's kind of how I think. And we've kind of laid out some of the factors with Keys, but
here's the thing. You know what? And I understand the skepticism, but the posture that they're taking is in the past. Does Michigan go after a dude from Hattiesburg, Mississippi? No. They don't even take a swing at a dude from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Right? But to me, it's the posture they're taking, especially with Brice in the fold. So it's like, hey, we're going to take a shot at Calvin Russell. If we can get him up on a visit, and I think that's the deal right now. I think they think, and that'll be the deal for us now here in the coming days, in the next few weeks. Can they, as they jockey for a spring visit, like if they can't get him up, if they can't get on this visit list here in the next couple of weeks, then it's a non-starter, right? That's what we're looking at now. They're angling to get on his visit list. If they can't get on his visit list here in the month of what's remaining in March and into April, then it's over. but they are clearly of the mind that they can get on that visit list. So let's see. And if they can get on that unofficial visit list, then you get an official, and now you're in the game.
And I will say this. I don't want to scoff at too much because some of the guys they are getting up to campus, I'm still shocked that some of these guys are making these trips. So they have shown the ability to get guys to campus, right? And lock in visits. And that's an encouraging sign. And this could be a guy that you see them lock in a visit this spring. And hey, maybe they have some factors going for them that people don't know about. And maybe they can use that to their advantage too. So, but yeah, this one is, I think, out of all of them you're about to name, is the one I'm like,
Well, hey, look, I'm telling you, that one is, put it on the list as a guy that they think they can get up. They got a chance to get up on a visit. They think they got a legit chance to get up on the spring visit, and we'll see. So he's on the board, Brice. He's on the board. But after Cj Sadler is the guy that we have at the top of the list, is who they have the best shot at of receivers, athlete/receivers. Number 2 on my list is guys they have who they have a legit shot at pulling in. Nasir Rankin, Chicago Morgan Park. Footprint guy who's been on campus, guy who they seem to be establishing a really good relationship with, good bond with, as Ron Bellamy, guy who has return spring visit set, coming back on official, maybe get another visit in there in between. I think they got a good shot at, and not a slam dunk. I wouldn't call him a leader, but I think they got a good shot at Nasir Rankin.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too of him. Again, we talked about 2 guys before him from Mississippi and Florida. He's from Chicago, and Sam, Michigan has done wonders in Chicago, landing guys like Amarian Stewart and JJ McCarthy and Trevor Key and AJ Henning and all sorts of guys over the years. So, and the main recruiter in that area was Sharon Moore for most of those recruitments. So when your head coach has those many ins in a talent-rich and fertile-rich area like Chicago, that's a big plus. But yeah, and that was the guy I mentioned. He just confirmed to me right before this podcast he will be back up on campus next Tuesday. That's a big deal, securing a visit. And this is going to come down to, and this is just my opinion, he's got a crystal ball in right now for Illinois, who's done a great job recruiting in-state and just overall in general this cycle. But I think Michigan, I could see this being another Michigan-Illinois battle. I know we kind of saw that little Victor Singleton, and, that was a guy that Michigan was in for, quite a bit. But they have a great shot at, Rankin, and he's been up to campus in the winter time. He's coming up. I think there's a great shot he's back up this summer as well for official visits. So they got a lot going in their favor. He's an athlete. You're seeing some of these clips at wideout, what he can do, the ball in his hands. He can make guys miss. He can accelerate, and he's just lightning in a bottle, right? Look at him. He takes off in the open field, and you're not catching him. And that's one of the things I really like about him.
Yeah, so the Victor Singleton recruitment, Toledo Central Catholic, for those who weren't following, there were other factors there. I don't think that was just Illinois just flat beating Michigan for a guy, right? There are other factors that tip the scales in Illinois' favor. Now, in this particular case, Illinois has home field advantage. Make no mistake. And they are clearly going to go all out. Like, this is going to be the number one guy on their board. They're going to pour everything into him. And, I'm willing to bet you they're probably telling him, you know what, anything you want. You could even be the top basketball recruit, too. I bet you they're telling him. Because, he's a point guard, too. And they're probably telling him, hey, you could be on the basketball squad as well. I don't know if they got Dusty involved. I don't know if they got Dusty involved in this recruitment. They're probably telling them that too, because I think he's probably that significant a target for the Illinois program. So there is a steep hill to climb in that regard because of his significance to that program. Like he's the guy in Illinois.
He's their Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, essentially. So you are recruiting against that. And yet, what do you want to do, Nasir? Like, what's your goal? Like, how high do you want to go? No disrespect to Illinois. Good program. And you know I love Corey Parker. Like CP is my dude. That's my guy. I love CP. All right, I want to make this clear. But if CP had to choose between Michigan and Illinois, CP's going to Michigan. That's just me. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm not speaking. I'm not saying that CP. I'm not saying CP said that. I'm not saying CP said that. CP didn't say that. This is my opinion. My opinion on the matter. I'm just saying. So this would be my pitch. This would be my pitch to Nasir Rankin if I'm Ron Bellamy. If I'm Sharon Moore. It would be, how high do you want to go? Do you want to maybe, possibly, potentially, once every blue moon, compete for a Big Ten championship? Maybe. Or do you want to compete for championships? How high do you want to go? You want to compete for championships, you want to come to Michigan. That's the pitch, Brice. I could do this for a living, brother. I could do this for a living. That's the pitch.
I mean, the other thing about that, though, is Illinois did have a very good year last season. They're expected to have another good year this season.
When is the last time Illinois competed for a championship?
Right. No, I understand.
When is the last time Illinois competed for a championship?
It's been a minute.
I'll wait.
It's been a minute.
It's been longer than a minute.
Yeah, I don't think Juice Williams is there anymore. I don't think they're going to the Rose Bowl, and and I see where you're coming from.
Greg Range is not walking through the door, man.
They got a statue now. That's nice, but yeah, I definitely like that pitch. If I was Michigan, I think I would definitely take that approach. Why wouldn't you? Right? Like, I mean, I know Illinois is going to pitch, you're the guy. You'd be the dude if you came here. But Michigan can also sell that pitch kind of offensively because we have him ranked, Sam, 24/7 Sports at least, as a top 100 player. Like, he's the number 9 athlete, the number 2 player in the state of Illinois, but he's the number 82 overall player according to 24/7 Sports. So, and that's Allen's region. And he views him, I know, very highly if we haven't ranked that high. And that, again, it's not a knock on Michigan's offensive weapons, but they don't have a lot of guys like him, like a Rankin. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't have a lot in their room. So they can kind of technically also sell, you can be that dude here too, on a bigger stage.
On a bigger stage.
And would be the difference, right? Now, do they have to overcome distance? Sure, but it's also a couple-hour drive. It's not Hattiesburg, Mississippi difference or, Miami, Florida difference. And that's why I think this one is way more manageable. And like you said, a great shot that Michigan can ultimately land him.
Yeah. Yeah. So a guy that we've talked about before, and we don't really need to belabor him on this particular episode because we have talked about him. But Travis Johnson, Chesapeake, Virginia, Oscar Smith High School, one of the top pass catchers in the country, came up on a visit here recently with his crew. Unofficial visit to Michigan, and seemed like he was really impressed with the experience, and it made Michigan more of a factor in his recruitment. Wouldn't you say, Brice?
Yeah, and I wouldn't just say him. I think his mom was also equally impressed with Michigan. I know when she was by the studio and even on social media when they announced they're coming back up to Ann Arbor, she was very excited to be making that return trip to Michigan. So he's kind of developed that pretty good standing with Ron Bellamy. They've been, that was one thing. And I think we talk about Bryce Underwood so much, and especially on this podcast, it makes sense. But Sam, that was the one thing he kind of really zoned in and honed on with your conversation with him in the studio was he did get to meet Bryce Underwood when he was on campus this past winter. And that was a big thing for him because he's like, hey, man, he's a very cool guy. I've been watching his highlights. He gives me Josh Allen vibes. Like, that's the type of quarterback I see with Brice, and I really like that. So for him, the biggest thing I think, honestly, is going to come down to Michigan. This is just my opinion. Penn State and obviously West Virginia, and maybe I would say Virginia Tech as well.
Yeah.
But, I think East Coast is kind of where he's looking at and maybe potentially closer to home. But if he's looking to leave home, I think Michigan's got a real shot, like a real good shot. He's going to be taking his OV June 13th. That's a week after his OV to Penn State, which I think that's key. He's going to Indiana and South Carolina in May. So right now, schedule-wise, Michigan's getting his last official visit. And I think sometimes that's always the best to go last and not first. And if that stays the case, right, that could obviously change. That June 20th weekend is still open. But if Michigan is that last OV, maybe they can get like that last word in, kind of be like, hey, this is what we're looking at, combat any other recruiting pitches other schools are throwing at him. And at the end of the day, land a 6'3" athletic guy that can jump out the gym, a two-sport athlete that I think is phenomenal, and I think will only continue to rise up the rankings and be a perfect fit in Ann Arbor. Because again, Michigan did kind of address that with adding some more height to, the wide receiver room, but this guy is not only tall, Sam, he can jump. And so that's why I thought it was crazy, because when you asked him about his basketball kind of background and you said, what's a guy that you compare your basketball game to, at least, it was someone that I didn't think about, that I don't even know if you thought about initially, but it was Derek Jones, a guy that won the slam dunk competition several years ago, right? So for him to even mention that, it's like, okay, this guy can jump. He's got a great vertical, and he can get up and high point the ball and make catches that we haven't seen in years in Ann Arbor. So that would be a great add. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of him, and I think Michigan does have a real shot here.
Here's Travis Johnson talking about what he likes about Michigan and, of course, what he likes about Bryce Underwood.
You've had an opportunity to see Michigan a couple of times now. Let's start off first with talking about your impressions of Michigan, generally speaking. What are your thoughts on Michigan? What do you think of the program? What do you think of Amazing Blue?
I love the relationships I have with the coaches. They're very genuine. Like, especially, I came down for Texas when they lost to Texas this year. They lost the game, and still after the game, I was out with dinner with Coach Bellamy. Like, he's a great dude. Mm-hmm. And so with Coach Moore, he's a great, genuine guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, listen, man, it's different though for them, right? Mm-hmm. This past year, because their offense last year wasn't what their offense is gonna be. Mm-hmm. So they're basically recruiting you on the promise of the future as opposed to what they were presently at the time. How was that hitting with you? I mean, how did you see it
what did you think, and what do you think based on what they were offensively? I mean,
last year they could have did better offensively, but I talked to Bryce Underwood today. He's a good dude and another great dude on the field. So
yeah, so that's you already got into my next question, because that obviously affected things. You know, the quarterback situation that they had, they got a new offensive coordinator. So all the things that weren't in place offensively are likely are in place now. What about Bryce Underwood, #1 quarterback in the country? Before you even talked to him, did that have an impact on you? Did you know who he was? And now that you talked to him, does that impact you?
It had an impact. It had a very big impact, because not only you got to care about the coaches, you got to have a quarterback to get the ball from. So that definitely had a big impact.
Had you seen him at all, or did you watch him after you saw that they got him?
I watched his tape after they got him. Yeah.
Okay, so his game, like, what do you think of him as a player?
His arm is very strong. He kind of reminds me of Josh Allen.
Okay, all right. So him as a dude, what do you think of him as a guy?
He's very cool. He can tell he's a good kid.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So now, as you you were talking about Coach Bellamy as a guy that you connected with, that would be your position coach. A little bit more into the dude who would be your head coach if it was Michigan, Coach Moore. The vibe with him. Have you really gotten a feel for him as a head coach?
Yes, sir. He came to my school, I think either 2 weeks ago or last week. It was him, the general manager, the running back coach, and the new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsley. Yeah. I like his vibe. I think he's a very genuine guy. Yeah, I like Coach Moore.
You know, and I know Lamar Morgan comes through Virginia.
Yes,
what about Coach Morgan?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a minute, but when he came to Oscar Smith, we saw it. And,
yeah, I know he's a guy who rose through Oscar Smith some as well. Now, you know, as you kind of navigate the remainder of your process, you got a lot of different choices you can make about schools that you visit. You've been to Michigan a couple times. I know they are on you to try to get you back. Have they gotten on your visit list for a return visit? Have they talked to you about that at all? Are you going to be coming back for another visit?
Yes, sir. I'll be back in the spring.
Okay, so you've already made that decision.
Yes,
do you know exactly when?
I don't know the exact date, but I'll be back in the spring. I'll talk with Coach Bellamy. Yeah, I'll be back.
Okay.
And of course, that was Travis Johnson. Rapid fire on these last few guys. Brice, if you can give us a couple of words on Davion Brown from Richmond Trinity Episcopal, and then Gordon Sellars from Charlotte Providence Day, a couple of guys who have spring visits set up to Michigan.
Yeah, so Davion Brown, he will be coming up April 12th. This is a guy that's from the Richmond, Virginia area. Like you said, Sam, a top 247 prospect, 6'3", 185 pounds. He's got 32 offers. Some of the main competition for him right now is Georgia, Penn State, and Duke. He's a high academic kid. He's looking at Michigan thoroughly. I know Michigan, we've mentioned it several times, but the state of Virginia is going to be a big, recruiting battle state for them this cycle. And this is one of the guys that they're making a priority. They have a great shot here, but the first step is getting him up to campus. That will be happening. As for Gordon Sellars, another big-time wideout at a school familiar to most Michigan fans, Providence Day in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they've gone Channing Goodwin before, they've gone Jane Davis, and they're working on one of his teammates in Leo Delaney. So he's going to be coming up in the spring, and then he's also going to be making an OV this summer as well to Michigan. Great shot there. I know he really likes North Carolina. Now with Bill Belichick in his leadership there, taking over the reins. But yeah, those are two guys I think Michigan right now they're not in the leader, but I think they're at the top. They're near the top of like the leaderboard, right, so to speak. So we'll see where things go after these visits.
Yeah, and then one more to mention. Haven't seen a visit set up, but I know Michigan is is angling. He has seems like a full official visit list, but I know Michigan was really, really pushing a guy that they offered last year, and it seems like he's just really blown up. But Messiah Hampton out of Rochester, New York. And, he's up to 6'2". I know Ohio State's offered now. Penn State's offered now. Ross Douglas was the one who offered him at Syracuse. Ross Douglas out at Oregon, so Oregon's on him now. Right. But interesting tie from Michigan to Messiah Hampton, other than being on him early with Ron Bellamy, but he has an uncle who lives in Westland, Michigan. So, you got a family tie here in the state of Michigan as well that kind of helps you with a bit of a hook there. So I know that's one that they've been pushing for, and we'll see if they're able to kind of get on that visit list, because they were on them early before the blow up happened. So can they get a couple of visits in there on the recruitment that has just exploded, Brice? I mean, that was a guy that was below the radar, and now look at him. I mean, it's like everybody's on him now.
Yeah, he went down to Miami for the Under Armour camp, and he was one of the top performers there. I think a lot of people are shocked because, especially for that camp, at least down in Miami, there's so many great athletes. And so when they saw this guy from New York down in Miami, Florida, just balling out, they're like, wait a minute, who is this guy? And so that caught the attention of a lot of schools, and quickly word got around like, this is going to be a guy. And he's quickly risen up the rankings. He was outside the top 247. And then the latest rankings, he's now debuted at 193 overall for 24/7 Sports. He's even higher in the composite rankings at 143 overall. So I'm a big fan of him. He's been up to campus before. Like you said, Sam, he's had an offer from Michigan for quite some time now. He's pretty familiar with the coaching staff at Michigan. I just think this is a guy that I personally would make a strong push for it. And that's just my opinion.
The dude jumped 500 spots in the rankings. I mean, like, come on, man. They talk about coming from below the radar. 500 spots in the rankings.
When I was told he put on an absolute show down at the Under Armour camp in Miami. And that was a loaded event, right? So if you're going to do that in front of scouts and other top prospects, it's not a shock to me.
Yeah. So obviously Michigan and all these other schools knew what they were looking at, and the scouts obviously saw the same. So we'll see if Michigan is able to get on that visit list and make that happen, as they were on early. There's family in the area. Can they work that into getting on that visit list for an unofficial? And then obviously, you know how it works, the official. If they can, then they'll be in the game. So time will tell. That's the kind of a synopsis of what we think are guys at or near the top of the board. That's by no means the whole list. That's just what we see at this point, is what we like to do for you guys. Keep track of the visit list as we know it over on the Michigan Insider Premium, the VIP board. We'll keep a running tally, and obviously we'll be having interviews with those guys as they come in and out of town. We'll be having many of them by the studio as well. So again, it's about to get hot and heavy. If you don't have a subscription to the Michigan Insider, if you haven't had one, now is the time to get in, because it is about to get hot and heavy, and you want to stay up to speed over on the MichiganInsider.com. Until next time, thanks for watching another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider.